Hi, good morning. Today is November 22nd, 22. Welcome back. It's been a little bit. A lot of traveling and logistics that didn't allow for us to do a class, but we back. Glad to be back. Thank you. Thanks for being here again. Let's set our intentions, make aspirations by saying the four Immeasurables Prayer. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings not be separated from the happiness that has never known suffering. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion and anger. When we say this and we say all beings, really in terms of the Buddhist view, right? All beings is not out there separate from us. The view is about non-duality, interdependence, interconnectedness, impermanence as well. But when you're saying all beings, in reality, ultimate sense of reality and the view, you're not talking about multiple beings. You're actually talking about oneness, and including yourself in that, however you perceive yourself. So, because ultimate reality is about that interconnectedness, non-duality. So non-dual means one. So you can think about that a little bit. So we'll meditate. I think we should start with the 9 purifying breaths today. So we're sitting in our posture, right? And if you're cross-legged, or you want to do whatever, half lotus, if you're flexible or you're not, it doesn't matter. You can be cross-legged with your back straight. The reason why the back's straight is because we're dealing with the subtle body channels, right? So keeping the back straight keeps those subtle body channels straight, which when we work on the 9 purifying breaths, we're working on those 3 channels, which join at the navel. And you think of them, imagine them right next to the spinal cord. The 9 purifying breaths purify those channels. We're trying to get the winds. We talk about the winds in Buddhism. It's not just air, it's not just breath, it's actually movements of energy. We're trying to move them into the central channel, where you have some kind of mental stability that's conducive to meditation. If we take the right finger, the right hand, we make this Vajra fist and tuck the thumb, we take it to the left nostril. We're going to breathe into the right channel, which can either be white or red, depending on how you want to define yourself as masculine or feminine or male or female or not either. I do the white on the right. We're going to breathe into that white channel, and we're breathing in enlightened air, right? Enlightened energy of patience, for example, because the white channel corresponds in the negative emotion of anger. And we're going to breathe in the antidote to that, which is patience, forbearance, right? And we hold it near the navel where those 3 channels join, and then we're going to switch and breathe out through that same channel, and you're getting rid of that anger. Or we're going to switch with the left hand to the right nostril. So the left channel in my configuration is red, which corresponds to desire, grasping, greed, things like that. And you're breathing in the opposite of that, you know. It's just contentment, equanimity, humility. And breathe out that kind of desirous grasping. Breathing down where those three channels connect. And you should be visualizing these channels as you do this. Now we move to the central channel, which is blue. When we breathe in the enlightened quality of wisdom, which understands emptiness, which is the view of Buddhism. Emptiness meaning empty of inherent existence. And being empty of inherent existence allows for that non-duality and oneness, right? If we were just these solid entities, we wouldn't, that view would not work of interdependence and interconnectedness and non-duality. And these are big concepts, I know, so, take them a step at a time. Let's breathe in. We can use both nostrils all the way. Think of going, the channel goes from here down into the blue channel where it joins the other two. And hold, and now we're breathing out the ignorance, the separation from the view, the not understanding the view. On the last breath, we're going to almost breathe it out forcefully, almost like you're ejecting it through the crown of your head, merging your mind with space, merging your consciousness with space, with everything else, with the outer. Take that into 11 minutes of meditation. Starting now. Basically, we're just trying to look at what our mind is doing. Aware of being aware. So we're just becoming aware of the thoughts we're having or the emotions we're having. And that's it. We're leaving them where they are. We're returning to the breath, focusing on the spot between the nose and the upper lip, becoming aware of the thought, or we can use a visualization. Once we become aware of the thought, the visualization of the cloud dissipating back into this clear, stainless, limitless blue sky, cloud being the thought, which has arisen from the sky, will dissolve back into it. Or simply the technique of mind looking at mind, that awareness, being aware of the thought or the emotion and just leaving it where it is. That's all we're doing. And we're not measuring that in terms of success and failure, bad thought, bad emotion, good emotion. We're not doing anything. We're just looking at what's happening. That is it. We're not spacing out. We're actually trying to maintain this present wakefulness, if you will. Presence, wakefulness, awareness. Back to the breath. Staying in the awareness of what the mind is doing. Relax the body. You're keeping your back straight, but not rigid. That great analogy of like a string of a guitar or lute, they say in the old days. It's not too tight, it can't make a sound. Too loose, it can't make a sound. It has to be just enough tension, but not too much, and not too much slack. That's how we're treating our body right now. Rest in that awareness. With your eyes, Tibetan Buddhist tradition keeps the eyes open, resting lightly on whatever's in front of you. Not intensely staring, not spacing out, not like unfocusing, just lightly resting on whatever's there. Let whatever come up, come up. We're not preventing it. All we are doing is becoming aware of what's coming up. And not following it and not rejecting it, right? So if a thought comes up about the construction going on down the block or something, right? I'm just aware of it. I go back to the breath. I use my visualization, leaving it where it is. I don't think more of it. I hope they end it. I'm going to talk to the foreman, tell him to stop. It's too much noise. Not following it, not rejecting. I shouldn't be thinking. Shouldn't be thinking that's wrong. It's not wrong. We're watching the mind. We're just seeing what it's doing. And in that very moment of becoming aware of what it's doing, something happens in that awareness. There's a space that happens where we're not lost in the thought. There's room for it. The thought is not suffocating us. The thought is not consuming us. We're not consumed by it. And it's this awareness we want to bring into our world, in our daily life. Standing, sleeping, eating, walking, interacting. And the more you do this, you're going to surprise yourself at how wrong your conceptions often are of other people, expectations and judgments of people's behavior. Once you start to become aware of these thoughts as just thoughts, you realize so much of it's your own projection. You've already decided how people behave. So your projection kind of predicts it and responds, even if it's not based in any reality, responds more to your projection than what the person is doing, if that makes sense. Back to the breath. Become aware of what your mind is doing, what's happening in your mind, and leaving it there, giving it space. And this, becoming aware of what the mind's doing, leaving it where it is, going back to the technique, that's the repetition. You're just going to keep going with that, interplaying, between back and forth. Good. Everything we experience through the mind, right? That's all we have. That's our interface with the world, right? Our sense perceptions are all kind of operate out of the mind. So if that's the case, every interaction you have with the world, with others and with the world, is happening through your mind. So what are you bringing to the table in your mind? Much of what you're going to experience is going to come from what you're bringing, what quality your mind is in when you engage with the world. And the world can be sitting on the cushion alone. It could be out on the, among 1,000 people on the street. It could be, in bed with your lover or something, Think about that. Think about what that means. If every interaction, everything we experience is through the mind, not saying it's all in the mind and it's all imaginary, although it's not as we perceive it, right? We perceive things based on the limits of our sense perceptions. And as the view says in Buddhism, everything is, there's non-duality is the ultimate, reality, the ultimate truth. Everything we experience through the mind. So the mind, our mind, when we bring that into situations, what are we bringing with it? Are you bringing an angry mind? Are you bringing a mind full of preconceptions and prejudices and judgments based on past experiences, based on habitual tendencies, based on karma of countless lifetimes before, or karma just of this life? What are you bringing? You'll see when you start to become aware of these things that often the feedback you get from interactions and engagements with the world often are very much in correlation to what you're bringing to the table. Okay, I'm going to read something. So Buddhism, I came to meditation because it was a practice of Buddhism. People meditate for different reasons or come to meditation for different reasons, but we're really trying here in this class have moved into discussing things from a Buddhist point of view. This is from the Siddhartha's, it's called Siddhartha's Intent, which is an Instagram site. Siddhartha's Intent is a Buddhist organization under the direction of Zansu Khyentse Rinpoche, and they have their own Instagram page. Why are we having so much anxiety and so much stress and so much suffering? Because we have delusion. We'll read that again. Why are we having so much anxiety and so much stress and so much suffering? Because we have delusion. There's more to that. I'm gonna keep reading, but the whole point of Buddhism, all the teachings, meditation, all the sutras, 84,000 sutras, all the practices, ethical discipline, is to basically overcome this delusion, end this delusion. The reason why we have delusion is that we always end up thinking of something not real, illusion, as real. And that way we end up not seeing the truth. Some of us want to learn the truth and dwell on the truth, but our old habit, distraction, hijacks us all the time. So what do? We try to weaken the habit by not letting it recharge. And here we are learning a strategy. Our strategy is quick, precise, not long, but consistent many times. We attack this habit everywhere, anywhere, while chopping an onion, while sitting on the cushion, while on a bus, while prostrating to a Buddha statue in a temple, while looking at a busy street, or disco dancing, or while sitting in the forest, or while chanting, while playing mahjong. At all times, different occasions, we try to ambush this distraction. And how do we ambush distraction? Is by becoming aware of what our mind is doing. What are we deluded about? We're deluded about ultimate truth. And ultimate truth is about non-duality, interdependence, interconnectedness, impermanence. And what's the difference if we start to wake up to the fact of that we've lived in delusion for a long time? What's the difference? How are we going to behave differently? That's the question you have to, find answers for yourself. That's where studying the Dharma and practicing meditation and working with the mind can give rise to wisdom. The wisdom, the central channel, that blue channel, when we can bring our awareness there and come out of it. And not be so defensive, and not be so competitive, and not be so separate, not be so uncompassionate. We can justify all kinds of things. We can justify all kinds of negative emotions, judgments, and behaviors, but we can also suffer because we also do suffer because of these justifications. Understanding the view, non-duality, interdependence, interconnectedness, impermanence. As that understanding arises, which is really kind of somehow meditation on emptiness and understanding that, compassion naturally arises. They're like heat and a flame. They're inseparable. That wisdom, it's naturally it's naturally combined with compassion. They're inseparable. It's not a compassion of pity, being above people and saying, look, I've realized this and I've learned this and they haven't, so I'm better. And these poor people, it's not that. It's way beyond that. Okay. I encourage you to follow Zonsar Khyentse Rinpoche, Siddhartha's intent. Look at his teachings online. He's one of the great living masters that we have right now, and he's saying very important things and really going back to the source. He has an app now, his Sangha, it's called the 84,000, which are translations of the words of the Buddha, the actual sutras of the Buddha, going back to the source. Always going back to the source. Siddhartha's intent. Siddhartha is the name of Shakyamuni Buddha. What was Buddha's intent? What is the whole point? It's not just being nice. It's not just kind of learning to calm your anxiety through meditation and things like that. There's a bigger picture. And we need these teachers. I always say this is a study group. I'm a fellow student who's, luckily been able to have teachings with some really great masters. And it's just kind of sharing that with you, you know, much more about that and being one of you than, I'm not a teacher. The authentic teachers, part of a authentic lineage like Garchen Rinpoche, Zonsar Khyentse Rinpoche, Khandro Rinpoche, Lama Zopa Rinpoche. If you feel this karma connection to the Dharma and to Buddhism, I encourage you with all my heart to follow, find teachers like this. Follow these teachers. Now we have the benefit of technology. You can take refuge, you can become a Buddhist, you can do these ceremonies, if you will, or practices, if you will, online with these masters. And it's just as authentic and effective as doing them as in person, which used to be the only option, in Tibet, people would travel, on foot, on horseback or whatever, for months to go see a teacher, to get a teaching. These teachings are unbelievably precious. Unbelievably precious that they're still in this world and still intact and have 2,500 years since, the Buddha taught. They've been handed down, teacher to student, in a direct lineage. And I couldn't stress how precious these things are, and the fact that they're in the world, and the fact that you have access to it and have made an aspiration and an effort to make contact with them means that your karma has ripened to that point, that you've somehow accumulated a certain degree of merit. That's a whole big topic of merit, through this and past lives, to allow you to hear the Dharma, and make contact with teachers. So you must honor that, because in your next life you may not get that opportunity, based on what you do now. Big responsibility. Yeah. Well, let's see if there's any questions today. What do you do when you find yourself feeling rushed, overwhelmed? How do you slow yourself down? Exactly what we're talking about. I mean, there's many ways. Depends on your situation, right? If you're out in public, you have to apply different methods than if you're home, right? If you're home, you could sit on your cushion in the place where you meditate and, can watch a teaching or something like that. You're on the subway, or you're out in public, you're at work or something like that. There's different methods that you have to apply, but really it's this mind looking at mind that we're talking about. If you could start bringing that awareness to your everyday life, you're going to see things change. You really will. Especially if you start, the more you study the Dharma and you study the teachings, and bringing those teachings together with your, meditation practice. And I don't mean just on the cushion. I mean that becoming aware, waking up all throughout the day in little intervals, whenever it comes. You're riding on the bus. Usually, you get on the bus, you're worried about paying, finding a seat, somebody's there, somebody's annoying, somebody's playing music, and it's aggravating you. If you can catch your mind in those moments and just leave it where it is. Okay, all those things are still happening, but just leave the thoughts where they are, like we do here in practice. If you start doing that, you're going to see things change. It's just a matter of practice, and it takes a long time. You can't, this is not a quick fix. You're talking about behaviors, habituations, being habituated to certain thoughts and behaviors for your whole life and many lives before, if we speak in Buddhist, if we speak in Buddhist terms, What is your take on addiction and how these and other spiritual principle methods can help? Oh, addiction is from a Buddhist point of view, most likely you're talking about addiction is something that is a habitual response, and that could be a result of causes and conditions from past life, from this life. I encourage you, if you're dealing with addiction, to get professional care, like several pronged approach, be it AA or NA, the 12-step program, be it a therapist, sometimes rehab if it's a very acute condition and life-threatening and life-destroying. And also looking at definitely Dharma practice and meditation can help. Addiction often becomes our default mechanism. Now, there's different types of addiction, because there's certain things that are both physically addictive and mentally addictive, and there's some that are more psychologically addictive. Addiction is just as powerful, whether it's physical or psychological. And in a sense, there's no difference between the mental and the physical. It's so interconnected that it doesn't really matter. But when we talk about our mind, looking at our mind, having awareness of what our mind is doing, addiction is like a really supercharged way of not doing that, of avoiding that. Getting lost in a chain of thoughts or train of thoughts is one, and addiction is very strong habitual tendency to not allow you to have to face the moment, to be aware. And addiction is a very, very, very hard thing. It has a lot of, it's much more powerful than just our thought process, Some addictions, start in childhood. And they become this default mechanism, because we're dealing with painful situations or trauma or uncomfortable situations, and that addiction is always something that almost numbs out the pain, especially addictions like food addictions and say sex addiction and things like that, where it's not necessarily an addictive substance. You have to eat. Sex is a natural part of life, but these things can become, we're not talking about something like a drug that's like completely outside thing. These are components that are, usually we want to integrate into our life in a healthy way. Those things often can start in childhood, even, and, more of the drugs and alcohol starts more in teenage years or adulthood or late teens and adolescence and things like that. But some of these more psychological things can start in very early childhood. And that can become our default mechanism for many, many, many years. So addiction, I think, really you need some professional help. I mean, definitely therapeutic environments, psychotherapy, psychology, 12-step programs. And then the Dharma, and then meditation, understanding also how the mind works. I think it needs, addiction often is so strong, it needs all the above, And addiction can be extremely devastating because there's no end to it. If you're addicted to drugs or alcohol or sex or food, things like that, there's no gambling, there's nothing that satisfies that addiction. You may, exhaust yourself for the moment, be drunk where you pass out, or you finish having sex or whatever that is, but that's just a momentary kind of exhaustion of the energy, and it'll come back because it's something that can never be fulfilled. That's a long answer to a short question. The names of the teachers I recommended today, we'll put together a short list on our website, solidagoproductions.com. Nick's going to put those down, some of the names that I mentioned today. Thank you for rest in awareness. My thoughts immediately calmed down. There was more space for acceptance and less judgment, more space for alternative perception than my own habitual ones. Yes, that's what we're trying to do, really. Can you speak to ways to share meditation with your spouse or children, like practicing as a family? That stuff is always tricky. Sometimes it's almost more of a thing of attraction, people close to you kind of see maybe a little bit of change, maybe a little bit of different outlook in you because you've been practicing, and then they get inspired to do it. When you try to impose it, I mean, with kids, if you can find a way to make it fun, as a family, with spouses, and loved ones or lovers or something, sometimes, telling them you should do this, or you want to do, there can be a little bit of resistance. Sometimes it's good as a law of attraction, attraction rather than promotion. um, if that makes sense. Nick, if we could also put this app, you can get it on your iPhone, probably your iPad as well. The 84,000. I think it's just 84,000. It's really good. Um, okay. Any more questions? No more questions right now. That's good. Um, okay, let's meditate a little more then. That's good. Let's do 9 minutes. I'm not going to speak during these 9 minutes, okay? I just want you to meditate, not have to hear me blabbing. Use whatever technique you feel is working. Awareness, resting in awareness, like we said. Just becoming aware of what the mind is doing, and once you're aware, apply the technique. Go back to the breath. Sometimes it's just a matter of, once you're aware of the thought arising, you can leave it where it is, and it just, the pull or the charge of the thought just kind of dissipates. Okay, 9 minutes. Great. We're also going to start doing some talks on the 37 practices of the Bodhisattva. So maybe, Nick, we can put that up on the website. Any last minute questions? I don't think so. Good. Okay. Let us dedicate merit created. So merit is a really big topic. I don't know if I can I can't, maybe we'll get Victoria to speak about that because she's much smarter than me. When we make aspirations, for the benefit of all beings, we dedicate, for the benefit of all beings. So these kind of practices, and even meditation, there's a certain amount of merit, like good karma that you're cultivating. And you want to dedicate that merit, not just for your own benefit, but like you're dedicating it. And whatever merit, good karma is created from whatever action you do that's positive, that it be of benefit to all beings. And that's in sync with the view, because in the view, there's no separation between you and all beings, non-duality, right? Interconnectedness, dependence. So we're kind of like almost faking it till we make it. We're training our mind to think in those terms. So when we dedicate, which we're going to do now, when we say, by this merit may all beings attain enlightenment. By all beings, we're not saying, try to think of all beings as one, right? So it's not just all these separate beings, including yourself. By this merit may all beings attain the state of enlightenment and conquer the enemies of faults and delusions. May they be liberated from this ocean of samsara and its pounding waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. See you next week. Very happy to be back. Sitting with you all. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Nick, for your kindness and generosity. See you soon.